Now, also at CPAC was Michael Hayden, former director of the NSA, and prior to that, former director of the CIA. He had this to say at the NSA, where he was debating Judge Napolitano. Here's what Michael Hayden said.
If NSA were even capable of doing what the judge has just outlined for you, we wouldn't be having a debate here today. There would be nothing to argue about. Let's talk about
I would be in complete control.
Let's talk about facts. The judge is an unrelenting libertarian.
Yes, Judge Napolitano is.
So am I.
I think the best retort to that I saw came from Mark Dice. He put on Twitter, what he meant to say was not that I'm an unrelenting libertarian. What Michael Hayden meant to say was, I'm an unrelenting Luciferian. This is a guy, kind of like Michael Aquino, another person who was high up in the NSA. Look, if you're going to provide for the common defense, okay, you got to ask the question, what is he defending? Is he defending the Constitution that he swore to uphold? No. Is he defending the rule of law? No. Is he defending your individual liberties? No. He is trampling on all of that. No, what he is defending is continuity of government. And he will defend his criminal actions and the criminal actions of the agencies that he was in charge of in order to defend their power base. Listen, a libertarian values liberty. A libertarian values liberty above security. A libertarian doesn't trade his liberty for the promise of security. We know that never works out. Whenever you give up your liberty for the promise of security, you get neither. As Benjamin Franklin said, you deserve neither. Well, you don't get either. You never get either of those. If you become a slave, you will never be secure. It's just that simple. If you want to live in a maximum security society, that's the same as living in our worst prisons. We call our worst prisons maximum security. Now, about a month ago, Michael Hayden went to Washington and Lee University, and he made some equally amazing statements there. And I did a report on it about a month ago. I want to play as much of that as we have time for before we go to break. Let's go to that report. There's a very interesting video that got posted by Washington and Lee University over the weekend. Michael Hayden, who has been at the top of the intelligence community as the surveillance state of the 21st century has been put into place. He was someone who began as the NSA director around the time of 9/11, shortly prior to that. He then moved on to director of national intelligence, then on to the CIA. He's pretty unapologetic about how he's broken the law, and he made some amazing statements at this law symposium.
I'm not a law enforcement officer. I don't suspect anybody.
He's not law enforcement. He doesn't have any suspects. So I guess that would be why he doesn't go before a judge and get a search warrant. Now remember that in 2006, Michael Hayden told some reporters that the term probable cause is not in the Fourth Amendment. Well, it certainly is in the Fourth Amendment. Of course, it is a right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. See, that's a right of the people. These are rights that we possess whether or not there's a Constitution or a Fourth Amendment. And the reason that we have the Fourth Amendment is because it puts prohibitions on people like Michael Hayden who think that they don't have or should not have any kind of controls on their actions. They should go before a judge and say that they have a reason to search for the person, and they should be very specific about it. But he's turned this upside down. Instead of going to a judge and getting a search warrant saying, this is what I'm looking for, he does a dragnet surveillance of everyone about everything. Here's what else he had to say.
This is not about guilt. In fact, let me be really clear, okay? NSA doesn't just listen to bad people. NSA listens to interesting people. People...
Isn't that funny? He doesn't listen to bad people, he listens to interesting people. Ha ha. Who does he find interesting? Is it the political opponents of his boss? Is it somebody that would rein in the surveillance state? Maybe it's somebody that he'd like to blackmail. Maybe it's someone that would give him some information about insider trading on financial markets. Maybe it's corporate secrets from another country. Maybe he's just some kind of a perverted voyeur. whatever. He doesn't believe that there's any restraints on him. And what you need to understand is that the lie that we're giving up our freedoms so they can protect us from the bad guys is just that. It's a lie. He doesn't care about bad people. He cares about interesting people. Maybe he'll take an interest in you. Let's listen to what he said about Section 215.
A lot of commentary was made about Jim Clapper and the question from Ron Wyden on that, about mass and bulk collection and so on. Jim's answer was horrible. All right? And Jim's an honest guy. He just hosed it horribly.
Yeah, he lied. Let's continue. He hosed it because he flat out lied under oath. But of course, if you're part of the intelligence community, you won't go to jail for lying under oath.
Jim's answer was not as bad as Ron Wyden's question.
Oh, it's the question that's the problem.
I don't really know what a dossier is in this context. So what I wanted to see is if you could give me a yes or no answer to the question, does the NSA collect any type of data at all?
And this is Ron Wyden talking to James Clapper. And of course, this is the famous quote where Clapper looks down and rubs his eyes and he can't look him in the eye because he's lying not only to the senator, but to America. And he was exposed shortly after that. We're going to be joined in the next hour with our reporters who are in Chicago, reporting about the black site exposed by the Guardian's reporters, people being detained without being charged, people being tortured, people, some claim, have died there. The same types of things that we've seen at Gitmo. Why should we expect that if the government doesn't have to be held to account for lying to Congress, for lying to the government, as we saw James Clapper in the last segment we replayed when he was asked by Ron Wyden. Ron Wyden knew what the NSA was doing. He knew they were doing it illegally. He was putting him on the hot spot, trying to get him to confess to his illegal activities. But of course, he lied, and his lies were eventually exposed. Now we have Michael Hayden, who was director of the NSA at the time, formerly director of the CIA. Now he's retired, and he's going around trying to make the case that what they did was defending the Constitution. No, he was defending the government. He was defending his bureaucracy from illegal actions. He was hiding and covering up the actions that they were taking. If we allow them to continue with this dragnet surveillance state, if we allow them to get by not having warrants, not having to go before a judge to get search warrants, just collect everything on everybody as they wish, if we allow them to ignore the Fourth Amendment, they're going to ignore, and they are ignoring, all of our rights that were explicitly protected and all of our rights that were not explicitly protected, but protected by the Ninth Amendment. Remember that the Ninth Amendment, the ninth of the Articles of the Bill of Rights, said that if we don't specifically enumerate a right, that doesn't mean that it's not important, and it doesn't mean that we have relinquished it to the central government. And then essentially making the case even stronger with the 10th Amendment, saying things that have not been expressly delegated to the central government are reserved to the states and to the people. So if we let them get by with this, we are going to see that we no longer have habeas corpus. We're not going to have trial by jury. We're not going to have trials of any sorts. We're going to have an NDAA type of country. And of course, Obama's NDAA, indefinite detention without trial, that has been going on in Chicago for quite some time. And of course, Obama and Rahm Emanuel, who was his chief of staff at the time, very well knew that. So what we're seeing in Chicago with this investigation that Joe Biggs is looking at, this is very important to understand what's going on. There is not isolated to there. It was exported from there to Gitmo, and it's being exported to the rest of the country. And we need to look at this, and we need to reform it. We cannot allow this to continue. Now, I was playing the remarks from Michael Hayden in the last segment because I think it's very important to disassemble this guy's lies. And we need to walk this back and look at what these people are trying to do to our country. This is a civil war on our country, destroying our legal framework, destroying rights that have been there since Magna Carta, that have been respected throughout the English-speaking world for centuries. They are now taking these things down. They're laying an infrastructure of tyranny and using the latest and highest technology to do so. It's a very dangerous situation. I want to go back to this report that we did about a month ago on the nightly news. This was Michael Hayden talking at Washington and Lee. And of course, what brings this up is the fact that he had the audacity to look people in the eye at CPAC and say, Judge Napolitano is an unrelenting libertarian, and so am I. He's not a libertarian at all. He doesn't value our individual liberty. He doesn't respect our rights. He doesn't respect the law or the Constitution. Here's more of what he had to say. I want to pick up this report we were playing last time. This is right after we played the back and forth between Senator Wyden talking to James Clapper, and James Clapper also was lying and could not look Ron Wyden in the face. We'll pick up with my comments. Okay, so he says that all the senators, all their staffers knew that the 215 program was being abused. And I agree with him. Ron Wyden should have come out and said it. But I think it's a bit more interesting to hear the head of the NSA lie to Congress, lie to the American people. The whole program is a lie. The way that they're using the 215 section that they were given under the Patriot Act, even if that were constitutional, they're still exceeding their authority, because that was supposed to be going after people that essentially you could get a search warrant for, although you didn't have to go before a real judge, you just had to go before the FISA judge. But listen to what else he has to say.
Why was Wyden trying to get Clapper to say what he was saying? Because Wyden, in the committee, was losing the vote on 215 consistently 15-2.
So you put those two clips together and you understand that all the senators knew what was going on that were in the Senate Intelligence Committee. They knew that 215 was being abused, that they were going beyond their legal authority, which went beyond their constitutional authority. Their staffers knew. And Ron Wyden could not get them to do the right thing. 15-2, they were going to allow this continued abuse by the intelligence community. That's what he's saying. He's really making a case for how corrupt the Senate is. And it's gotten even worse. Ron Wyden is no longer there, and now we have Senator Burr from North Carolina who says he doesn't think there should be any public oversight of anything the intelligence community does. Listen to this last clip here.
Oh, your talk today about 215? 215 is such a safe haven. 215 is legislated by Congress. I was doing metadata collection under the President's raw Article 2 authorities from October 7th, 2001 forward.
Catch that? Look at the smug expression on his face. He's so happy. He didn't need any 215. I don't need no stinking law. I'm a law unto myself. I take orders directly from the President. Or maybe he gives orders directly to the President. Who knows? They do whatever they wish. He doesn't need the 215. He doesn't need a law from Congress. He doesn't need the Patriot Act. And he could care less about the Constitution. Listen to what else he has to say.
The 215 program doesn't begin with the Patriot Act. It begins with the private order I got from President Bush. And we decided it was lawful and consistent with the President's authorities as Commander-in-Chief.
Yeah, we decided what the law is. They did it in secret. And of course, you're not going to be allowed to know anything that he does, because that would hurt his effectiveness. To look at people who are interesting, not people who are bad guys. Tell us what you think in the comments below. I think this is okay. That's a report from about a month ago. We ran that on the nightly news. Those were the amazing comments that Michael Hayden made at Washington and Lee as part of a legal forum there. Can you believe that? Of course, he had the audacity to go to CPAC and say that he was a libertarian. And as I pointed out, I think Mark Dice had the best comment when he said he meant to say a Luciferian, not a libertarian.
Sold out for weeks due to the difficult and extensive proprietary process behind its creation, the exclusive InfoWars Life Secret 12 formulation is now back in stock in the last limited shipment of 2014. The most bioactive form that has been created with our proprietary process. This ultra-clean vitamin B12 nutraceutical has been carefully crafted and developed over the last 2 years and is based on cellular science of how your body actively absorbs essential nutrients. Secret 12 is taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Vitamin B12 deficiency is linked to scores of serious problems. And Secret 12 is a fusion of 2 organic, proprietary forms of vitamin B12, bringing you a true nutraceutical quality vitamin B12. Secret 12. Secret 12 is an excellent Christmas gift and is tailor-made to boost your New Year's resolutions. Supplies of Secret 12 are very limited. Secure yours today at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
Now, also at CPAC was Michael Hayden, former director of the NSA, and prior to that, former director of the CIA. He had this to say. Law? No. Is he defending your individual liberties? No. He is trampling on all of that. No, what he is defending is continuity of government. And he will defend his criminal actions and the criminal actions of the agencies that he was in charge of in order to defend their power base. Listen, I would be in complete control.
Let's talk about facts. The judge is an unrelenting libertarian.
Yes, Judge Napolitano is.
So am I.
I think the best retort to that I saw came from Mark Dice. He put on Twitter. What he meant to say was not that I'm an unrelenting libertarian. What Michael Hayden meant to say was, I'm an unrelenting Luciferian. This is a guy, kind of like Michael Aquino, another person who was high up in the NSA. Look, if you're going to provide for the common defense, okay, you got to ask the question, what is he defending? Is he defending the Constitution that he swore to uphold? No. Is he defending the rule of law? At the NSA, where he was debating Judge Napolitano. Here's what Michael Hayden said.
If NSA were even capable of doing what the judge has just outlined for you, we wouldn't be having a debate here today. There would be nothing to argue about. Let's talk.